Hello, welcome to ExGarage, Biblical Greek. We're doing chapter 9 on adjectives, and so we will just go right in and hopefully get through this within 20 minutes. That's the goal. Adjectives. So, an adjective in English describes a noun. It might do more than that. I'm not as familiar with English grammar as I am with Greek and Hebrew, which sounds strange. I know English to the extent that I know Greek and Hebrew. With that said, adjectives typically are used to describe a noun in English, and I think we learned about this earlier in Mounce. I think I said to put a little thumb note, a little thing to turn back to it on. That might have been just for nouns and prepositions. Anyhow, adjectives qualify, describe, add something to a noun generally, but what we're going to learn with Greek is that the adjectives can do more than that. They can function as a noun type, as a nominal, like an actual entity, and do the same thing as, say, boy. Could be, as we're going to learn in this example, evil. Could be, instead of like the evil boy or the evil girl, it could be the evil, as in like an abstract, all-inclusive of evil. In that way, it's technically formed as a noun, an abstract noun in that case. Abstract in the sense that it covers all particular uses of evil. I won't get into all the nuances, but basically it can act as an adjective. It can modify noun, the evil boy. It could act as evil on its own. It could it can qualify a subject by saying the boy is evil. Evil is describing the boy, but it's in the predicate position. It can do that as well. We'll go through all that. Hopefully that makes some sense. I used evil because that's in the example from Daniel B. Wallace, who is just a great resource. Anything that he's done in Greek, it would probably be good to be familiar with that or find his main textbooks. One would be, I mentioned a few lessons back, Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics by Daniel B. Wallace. So he makes the point that in the passage of Matthew 6:13 with paneru, evil, he says that the King James Version will have, but deliver us from evil. It kind of gives that general nuance to it. But he notes that the adjective has an article with it. So when the adjective has an article, in this case it's a genitive singular masculine, tu, tau, omicron, upsilon, he says it's the evil one. So that's a big difference, right? He makes that note right in the next paragraph. There is no little theological difference between the two. The Father does not also keep his children out of danger, disasters, or the ugliness of the world. What did he say? Does not always, not also, does not always keep us out of the fallenness of life, right? We're fallen in Adam, and even in our own hearts, we have to, we're growing in the image of Christ. So evil is always about us, even within us, and that first and foremost. But this verse is actually dealing with the evil one, the evil one, and so I think that's a good nuance there. It's a 4-stroke motorcycle in the background. I know that because I ride dirt bikes. I used to, and that's not a road. That shouldn't be on the road. That should be on a track somewhere. So that's good. I don't even think he has a license plate for that one. It's terrible that that's wonderful that I know that. So, with that said, adjectives are important. Of course, every part of speech is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't speak it, right? So, but adjectives, I think as we get to know these three different ways in which Mounce has us laid out. Once you get these three different categories for an adjective, you are solid when you get in the New Testament and figuring out what an adjective is doing, and then you could pronounce that in your interpretation, pronounce it in your sermons, etc. But in 9.2, he says here in 9.1, an adjective is a word that modifies a noun or pronoun. Adjectives perform three functions. Now he gets into those functions. So these three categories for how they can function, that is how they're used in a sentence. What is their purpose? So it can attribute something to another word, which would be a noun in this case. And so here we have, it describes a quality, an attribute of something. So she learned modern Greek. Not any Greek, not old Greek, not fake Greek. She learned modern Greek. So the adjective's the word modern. The term is modified, the term it modifies is called the head noun. That's important. The head noun. In Hebrew, that'll be in our next series. That's really important because there's a lot of modifying of a head noun. And the head noun really controls how we're going to do the noun that follows, that modifies, or adjective, etc. So a head noun is basically the key word that is being either described, further defined, etc. So she learned modern Greek. Greek would be the head noun. Modern would be the one modifying, the word modifying the head noun. The substantival. So the adjective can function as a substantive, substantival. It's probably coming from kind of an Aristotelian way of thinking or thought, and there's truth to it. God creates certain things, so it's a substance. There's something being predicated, something in itself, and so that'd be the adjective functions like a noun in this way: the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's in 9.3. 9.4, it could be in the predicate position, which describes something of the subject. And so we have the students are good. Students are good. Good says something about the students. It doesn't say anything else. It doesn't say the students are good for, and describing something more, which would still be predicate of the students. So the students are good for nothing. It says something about the students. The students are good for going home early, so that's what it's doing. It's saying something about the subject, which is the one that does the acting of the verb. It's in the subject position, comes first in English, and in Greek it can come pretty much anywhere, usually close to the main verb, but not always. In Hebrew it comes after the main verb. I don't know why I'm talking about Hebrew. 9.5, almost nothing there. So the form, it gives you a chart here. He gives you a chart. The adjectives in this chapter all use the same case endings you have learned for nouns. Yeah, you'll note that as you go back over what charts you've learned on your nouns, and you look at the case endings here, you'll see that they're familiar. We have the genitive plural with the the omega nu. You have the dative plural, looks the same with the iota sigma. Sigma's the S-looking thing, and on the end, the S kind of drags down below the letters, goes under. So the same forms in the nominative singular masculine. You got the sigma ending with the omicron. I hear the bike is coming back. Maybe not. So lexical form of any word that can appear in more than one gender is in the nominative singular masculine. He's reminding us that when you look in a lexicon, a dictionary of the Greek or even English, or Hebrew and Greek lexicons usually go with one form, and then from that you'll see all the other forms tagging off of it. And the form used is the masculine singular nominative. Yeah. 9.8, attributive. When an adjective functions as an attributive, so this is functions of an adjective. He's just going to go into detail what we talked about in 9.2 through 9.4. He now goes into detail in 9.8, 9.9, and 9.10. He gives you all their various, he gives just more nuances, I guess, and helpful ways of capturing when a adjective is functioning as an attributive, a substantive or substantival use, or its predicate use. Again, we call that function. It's the way it's functioning in a sentence. So he has the good word. The good word is, that can't be what he means there. Oh yeah, okay, so ha, agathos, logos, estin. This is the, okay, so he says when the adjective functions as an attributive, it agrees with the word it modifies in case, number, and gender. So that's what you want, that's what he's wanting you to see here. I was thinking that looks just strange. But he's not completing the sentence. It's ha, that's the article. The means article means the. Agathos, we have good, and logos. Logos would be the noun. But if you notice that agathos is the same case, number, and gender as logos. I can put that down here. I think it's just important to visualize it just in case. We're only in chapter 9 here. And you'll have to watch me write this as I distract with my speech. It's not really distracting anything, I know. That's not gonna, so I'm gonna have to use 2 lines here. No, I know if you have the book, you're looking at it, but I think when I point at it, it's gonna maybe solidify what you're thinking and make it so you can move forward without question. That's why I'm doing this. Yeah, I don't need all the pointings. Okay, so if you know, you have the omicron is the article. You got agathos, which is good. That's describing something, because we know it here. It was acting as its own. You would find that logos wouldn't be there. It'd be the good is something. But we have logos. So we know it's the good word. This is the noun. That's the adjective. So the adjective, and it's in relationship with the noun, it's going to describe the noun. And then the article really brings the two together. Is essentially, it's the articles for the logos, but it's subsuming agathos. I don't, how that all operates. I'm sure there's some theories to that, or even maybe concrete data. But so with that said, ha agathos logos estin, the good word is something. So because the noun can be in 3 different genders. Yeah, so he's just noting it can be in feminine, masculine, feminine, neuter, but it won't. It'll be in the gender that the adjective is going to be modified, or whatever noun it's going to modify. It's going to match the gender. It won't be separate. He says it's essential to memorize the gender of all nouns. Very helpful, not essential, especially if you have some online sources to lean off of. If you forget, you can just go into Logos or another. I'm sure there's other online sites that you can go to, put your cursor over it, and it'll remind you. It's just helpful to know a noun's gender. And generally, that's not that hard, because when you get used to the case endings, you'll spot the gender right away. So the charts are really going to be what he means by that. You get, familiarize with logos, but if it's logu, you're going to know that it's a genitive singular masculine because it's got the omicron upsilon. And so I think that's really important. It's just when he says things like that, just know that your charts will automatically get your mind into the right place in memorization. And as you learn your nouns and your adjectives and all these other parts of speech, your charts are going to key you in on its own memorization. That memorization is going to influence all of your vocab. So don't get crazy with multiple cards putting a noun in different genders. Don't do that. When an adjective functions as a substantive, its case is determined by its function, as is true of any noun. Right. The good person, its gender and number is determined by what it stands for. For example, if it stands for a single entity, that entity is masculine, and that entity is masculine, the adjective would be masculine singular as above. Yeah, the good person, you fill in whatever the adjective is standing for. In this case, you have ha logos or ha agathos. Same thing here. In this second example in 9.9, you have ha agathos. You don't have this. So it's functioning now as a substantive, like I said earlier. The good something. In the context will determine whether it's a good man, a good woman. Well, in this case, it's a male, or it's a male gender. So that's important. You can get that by the ending in the article. And so then context will help you determine what it's doing there, and that's what he gets into at the bottom with the good woman, the good thing, the good ones, the good people, with plurals. And so I hope that's helpful. Predicate, again, is saying something, qualifying something about the head noun or the noun in the subject position. So you have the man. The man is in the subject position. Then you have the to be verb, which is. The man is good. Good would be the adjective. Good is modifying back on the main noun, the head noun, or the subject noun in this case. He talks about presence of the article between attributive first implies second, and there's also a third attributive. Go ahead and read that. That's important for good. You bring out a real wealth of a text. He goes through each of those. I'm not going to go through them now. Those you're going to develop more as you go along, and probably even in the second year you can get into first and second place. Not trophies, but the first and second. Is that what they use? Heard the dirt bike. Now I'm thinking trophies and races. Anyway, you can do that. Know it, read it, and then don't be overwhelmed by it, but maybe make notes on it. But that'll come in more later. Odds and ends, the article, and a prepositional phrase. So you often find that the article followed by a preposition. Okay. Sometimes this occurs in an article, noun, article, modifier construction. And by article, noun, article, modifier, he has these in 9.14. Article is the. Noun would be anything like people. Another article would be like the. And modifier would be like good. The example. Yeah, so that's just ways of shorthand saying something there. It's helpful. So he gives this example. Sometimes this occurrence. What's he saying? He's just saying sometimes this occurs in an article, noun, article and then the modifier, i.e. the adjective in this case, or in this, well, actually in this example, it's another noun. The construction where the second article tells you the prepositional tells you the prepositional phrase is modifying the noun. So an article, the, when it's followed by an article and a noun, so you got the children, and you got another the with a preposition and a noun, so you got the and a preposition. Of course, it'd be difficult to translate it. The children, the in Bethlehem. It's his example again, 9:14. So you want to know that the article can do many things. He's not really saying that yet, but the can actually function as a pronoun, a relative pronoun probably. It can do many things. It can actually just kind of, you can translate this, the children, the ones in Bethlehem, or the ones who are in Bethlehem. You can translate the children who are in Bethlehem. So the article can do many things. But you know this because it follows a noun. The article follows this noun, and it is in relation to a prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase will modify something, but the noun is telling us that it's going to be modifying what came before it. That might have been more confusing. It's pretty straightforward as you read what he says. Just know that the article can do various things, and you'll get used to it more and more. I'll just stop there, and I don't need to talk about everything. Vocabulary. Agathos, good, useful. Agapetos, beloved. Ionios, eternal. Aleleos, or aleleon, aleleon, one another. Actually, I wonder if that's aneleon. Aneleon. I'm trying to think of that. I'm trying to think of the two lamens together. If that, anyway, I'm just spacing. I'm not going to blame it on that I'm tired. I'm just not recalling. You turn back to the early alphabet and the rules. Again, I hit this book, I open the chapter and go. I'm not reviewing, just doing this. Okay. So, and pronunciation is not my game. Apekrithe, he, she had answered. That's a common one. It's a certain form of, that's not the form you would find in the lexicon, but it's he, she had answered, and again, he, she, it will be determined by context. So this is a verb used often. Doulos, servant, slave. Eon, if, when. It's an important one. Read his little note there. Doulos is important too, theologically important, slave, servant. Used with reference to Christ. I think it's also used with reference to sin. Maybe both usages are in Romans and many books. Again, it's used 126 times, I think is the number he gives. Emas, eme, emon, my, mine. It's possessive of something. Entale, commandment. Kathos, as, even. It's a comparative, I think, or yeah, adverbial by, yeah. Kathos. Kakos, evil, bad. Sounds like it. Kakos. Sounds like something a kid would say when they use in the toilet. That's how I remembered that one. I think that's how I remembered that one. It sounds like it right now. Kakos, evil. Again, try to find things that help you relate your nouns to something familiar. It makes it easier to memorize. Mu, my. It just looks like my anyway. Emu, my, possessive. Nekros, dead. Sounds like necrophobia is what he gives. and that's deals with corpse and body, and is used in the English language, so that's could be easy to memorize it that way. Necros, necrophilia. There's a crazy rock band with that name, I think. Pistos, faithful, believing. Pistos, that's another really key word. Paneros, evil, bad. Ponero, he gives the example of ponera. Yeah, it sounds like what you'd find with porn in English. Paneros, again, that idea of it's not right, it's not aligned with God's will, it's evil, it's bad. That's what evil and bad mean, going back to the Old Testament. Anything that's not in agreement with and or against, directly, diabolically, the opposite direction, would be evil. And so, protos, first earlier, tritos, third. That's it. You got 52% of the New Testament down. There's more, just a little bit more there with 9:18, and some exegesis at the end on the Greek article is actually quite complex in how it is used, and as a result, you will see it translated many different ways. So he goes through that. He's got the disciples of John, often fast. So that's the definite, the disciples, not any disciple. It can function as a grammatical marker. For example, showing the following word modifies the previous word. With the holy angels, with meta, tone, there's the article, angelon, tone, agion, with the holy angels. So yeah, so if you have two articles and they're really just a marker showing that it's following the previous word, it doesn't do anything more. You don't translate the holy, the angels, it's just the holy angels. So again, is in 9:19 after that, under exegesis, point 3 now. Greek uses ha, omicron, it's the omicron, the masculine singular article, when English does not. And then, so it uses this when English wouldn't. But Jesus answering, said to him, so it says, apokrythes de ha Iesus, a pen pros auton, and the article there, ha Iesus, you don't need the Jesus. You just say Jesus, but Greek will do that. We already talked about that. He mentioned that before. Sometimes ha, which reminders are good, especially right now, especially with articles. They do so much. Functions with a participle or an adjective to make it a noun, even with the words between them. So let's say he says in number 4, he says to the one who has withered hands. So lege means he said, and then to is the article. Anthropo is another noun. So we got he said to the man, and then we got another article, to, and then we got another article, tain, xeron, I don't even know that word, it's forgotten, it slipped my mind, with a withered hand. So he's saying, he says to the one who has. This is what we talked about earlier. So we got, he says to anthropon, that's the man, to. He says to the man. We know it's to, it's a preposition because it's the dative singular, to, and we know it's dative singular because it has the little subscripted iota underneath the omicron. It looks just like our charts if you go back to the article chart. So he said to, and we got the man, anthropo. He said to the man. And then we got another article, to. And we talked about earlier, is you got another article right after it. It's probably going to be just modifying this noun. So he said to the man, or to the one who. So to is functioning as a relative. We know it's relative pronoun. It's a pronoun because it's modifying this person here. And so anyhow, I can go on. Just go through the rest of them. Knowing Greek articles, you can get more into later, but you get that down, you're really ahead of the game. But don't be overwhelmed by that. The big key there is just the adjective. Understand the adjective, how it functions. It can do multiple things, and then get that chart down.